under the Microfinance Support Center. The issue of gender and equity, Honorable Akero, it's an ongoing issue. Every year we continue to improve, and we do not get the question that you raised properly. Then I'll ask the PS to comment on the petroleum fund.
Yes.
And also, you said the issue of debt.
Debt will come.
Debt will come later. Then domestic areas. We also ask the PS to comment on that, and the issue of court awards will come under vote 130.
Yes.
The technical person has already come as they make the presentation. We can cover that. But I'll ask the...
So is the technical person already here?
Yeah, she's here.
Can I ask that we first receive that presentation and we handle all the issues at
Jennifer, are you in position or you want to settle in first?
Respond to the issue of the domestic revenue mobilization strategy, the progress you have made.
They are going to respond. Let's first receive a presentation on vote 130.
Can you?
And then we
ask her? We request that she can use the other.
She didn't come with a soft copy. She has paper point.
It's okay. We called her as an emergency.
Okay,
she had planned.
So you can go ahead.
We can receive it as it is.
Are they sanitized?
Are they sanitized, Jennifer?
Yes, they are.
They are sanitized, I'm told.
So the clerk can...
So let the... Yeah. Start with the chair.
Jennifer, why don't you face the chair?
The chair.
Face the chair. You have been given the privilege to... And you have 7 minutes?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Through the Honourable Minister, in the interest of time, I will not go through the structure of the presentation, but I will just go to the background and talk about the mandate. This is a presentation of the policy statement for treasury operations, which is the vote that handles public debt. And this is repayments and the disbursements of all our loans. It also looks at both domestic and external, plus any other liabilities that have a direct charge on the consolidated fund. The mission is to effectively and efficiently manage government statutory debt obligations, investments, and the contingencies fund. Chair, the mandate, maybe we can...
The mandate we know, and the mission we know. This is not your first time.
Jennifer, go to the issues.
Move to the issues.
Do we go through the achievements? On slide number 5,
yes.
Achievements as at December 2020, the projection for external debt and domestic debt due were met, reconciled with creditors, and funds requisitioned and disbursed on a timely basis by the vote during the period up to December 2020. Withdrawal applications that were submitted by projects during the period were processed on time. These included the online disbursement applications for World Bank, IFAD, and the other manual applications using the various disbursement models. Slide number 6. We continue. We prepared various reports for use in the preparation of the debt sustainability analysis, quarterly debt bulletins, and many other ad hoc management reports relating to public debt, which is both domestic and external. We prepared financial management statements for treasury operations, vote 130, for the year that ended 30th June 2020, and the audit was supported and concluded, and the report was also submitted. The debt management and financial analysis system, which is the DAMFAS, the system that we use for debt management, was updated with disbursements from creditors. We also updated with repayments of both external and domestic creditors, grants received, and the new agreement information to facilitate preparation of reports was also entered into the system. Chair, during the year, Vote 130 also had challenges, and one of them was Bank of Uganda recapitalization, non-resource budget, which was given to the votes. So what we remained with was not sufficient, in other words. Then the other challenge was increasing use of garnishee orders that impact on budget execution. These require immediate release of funds in order to be stayed by court orders. Non-performance of some loans, yet commitment fees are being charged. This arises as a result of failure to secure, among many others, right of way, delayed procurements, etc. The other one was increasing cost of borrowing arising from a shift from concessional borrowing to market-based loans, which are costly in terms of interest and arrangement fees. Then the last one is the ever-increasing cost of bank charges, given that many entities have been enrolled onto the IFMIS and are paying via EFT. Chair, these are the charges that we normally budget for to be able to pay the Bank of Uganda. This cost, because it is not decentralized, it is usually handled at a treasury level. Chair, the key activities lined up for the financial year 21-22 include the routine activities of updating the DAMFAS with both disbursements and repayments and the new projects. Then the other one is reconciling debt numbers with key stakeholders. These are the creditors. Then undertaking debt service operations, updating debt data, both on the DAMFAS and the IFMIS, and preparing statutory and management reports as and when required. Chair, the budget proposal for 2021-22, if I may just go through slide number 10, we have budgeted 225 billion for the contingencies fund. We are using the table. Then the second one, which the PS will help me to reconcile, is the BOU recapitalization. When we prepared the presentation, we had 100 billion, but Chair, you'll excuse me, this may have changed, but the PS will guide. This is capitalization of Bank of Uganda. Then Chair, we have budgeted for 120 billion to cater for arrears in form of court awards. These ones are managed centrally. They are not decentralized to the various entities, so they would be different from what other votes present. Then, Chair, we do have the interest and the interest on treasury bills and also treasury bond costs, which include coupon and also interest. And for interest on treasury bills, we have budgeted for 857 billion, and then for treasury bond costs, we have budgeted for 2.7 trillion. We also do have the bank charges, which I talked about. This includes what we pay to Bank of Uganda as a result of that MOU which we signed with respect to other votes and the charges which they charge Government of Uganda for their services. We have budgeted for 75 billion. Chair, we do have listing fees on our securities to be able to operate under the Uganda Securities Exchange platform. They charge us a fee of 10 billion per bond on the anniversary of each of the bonds, and that is 1.5 billion. Chair, external debt, we have loan interest, and the total there budgeted for is 725 billion. Then commitment fees or charges, we do have 23 billion. This is what we explained earlier. Once we commit on a loan, on all the undisbursed amount, we have to pay. Then we also have management fees, which accrues once in a lifetime of some of the creditors' facilities. So that is 82 billion. Then we do have external amortization, which is principal being paid on these external loans with our creditors, and we have budgeted that we'll be paying 1.8 trillion during the financial year 21-22. Chair, we also have what we call redemptions or rollover for domestic debt, and under treasury bills, it is expected that 6.4 trillion of treasury bills will mature during the year, and as the government is, we will not be able to pay, but we shall roll over this cost by issuing debt to pay this. Then also treasury bonds that will mature during the year will amount to 1.9 trillion. Chair, when we add up the sub-components, then it comes to a total of 15 trillion 223 billion 872 that is required for this treasury operations, which is the vote that is going to take care of our debt. Chair, we have slide number 11, and we do have some notes which we have provided. If I may quickly go through them. We want to note that the government debt strategy prioritizes borrowing on highly concessional terms, but due to the need to finance large infrastructure projects, there has been an increase in the amount of non-concessional debt in our stock, and that's why our costs are also increasing very much when you look at the interest being paid. The projected external debt principal payments amount to 1.8 trillion, which we have already seen, and the bulk of this is dominated by China with respect to Karuma and Isimba hydropower projects, Entebbe Expressway project, and the term loan facility which we obtained from PTA. The projected external debt interest for 21-22, as already discussed, is 725 billion, and again, the largest amount on this account is with respect to China, which will be taking 40%, IDA 21% of the 725, and the others will follow in small ratios. Chair, projected allocation for redemptions for treasury bills and bonds is 8.3 trillion. Currently, repayment of domestic debt principal is through issuing more debt. This is what I already mentioned. And it should be noted that the budget for redemptions depends on a number of factors which affect the actual outturn and may result in budget revisions. These include, at the time of budgeting for the current financial year, the current financial year will not have ended the tenures. That's at the time when we prepared for, as we prepare now for the next financial year, which is 21-22, we are still acquiring, issuing more securities. This is what we are saying here, that will not have ended the financial year, and this might affect the budget that we have presented, which sometimes results in two adjustments because of the tenures or interest that we expect. Chair, lastly, we also had, we do have unfunded priorities, and one of them has been a violation of the bilateral agreement which the government signed with the South Sudan government, and was supposed to have cleared the compensations, but Chair, due to insufficient funds, the ministry has had to phase these ones over a number of years. Chair, we go to slide number 15, where we do have which talks about cross-cutting issues, and we are noting that vote 130 is not a service vote, and therefore is not subjected to gender and equity compliance assessment. We don't have a recruitment plan, we don't have a work plan, because we don't handle those items. It is strictly public debt. Chair, briefly, that is what we could present.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Jennifer. I want to begin from where you have ended. I want to know the outstanding in regard to the bilateral agreement with South Sudan traders. how much have you paid, and what is outstanding. Please be on record.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just consult with my colleague and we refer quickly to the financial statements that we presented?
Okay.
Okay.
You can take note. Okay. Then also, what is the cost of redemption? In terms of if you in terms of if you defer payment of debt, do I call it a deferral, or you decide to borrow to repay a certain debt?
Say under domestic or external?
Under domestic.
Chair, then it would mean we'll go to the market and then we'll be getting it at the market rate.
So what is the cost? Our interest is the cost involved. So you can also take note of that.
Okay.
I think let's get the question clear, Chair. I think what you're asking is by deferring, by not paying the debt, we issue another debt.
Yes.
At the prevailing rate of the interest rate at that time. And I think that can easily be represented by the amount of interest that we pay or intend to pay in a particular financial year with respect to domestic issuances.
Correct.
So I think the answer lies in that line,
correct,
which is on Treasury bill
costs?
redemptions here. It's here.
Yeah.
Rollover. Look at the second last two things. The rollover,
yeah.
yes, it's there. Treasury bills at cost. That's the principal, and the interest that
you're paying is 857. That is for the entire stock.
Yes. So you need to break it down, eh?
Okay.
Maybe I think that's the question.
Yes.
For avoidance of doubt.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we want to tell Parliament that when a debt is rolled over, this is the cost government incurs by rolling over the debt.
Okay.
Then on capitalization, Bank of Uganda. Last year we gave 481 billion. In the estimates, in the projection for this year, she has brought 100, but I have seen from another source a projection of 481 or 87. Yes. The question is, Mr. PS, is this capitalization or it's another way of financing activities at Bank of Uganda? Reason. Year in, year out, we see you budgeting for capitalization of Bank of Uganda. I wouldn't want to go into the paper or cash flow debate. You know how far we have come in that aspect. But the concern of Parliament is, why should we continue recapitalizing Bank of Uganda? Can this be planned for once and for all and get to an end? And if it is to come, can it be planned in such a way that it doesn't come year in, year out? Because we are not going to tell us that Bank of Uganda has regular challenges which keep coming in every financial year. The last from me is on bank charges. 75 billion is being planned to be spent on bank charges. Sorry? Last year, we debated this issue and approved a figure of, how much was it, Jennifer? Remind me. Was it 30?
63.
What we approved? 63.
63.7, Chair, sorry.
I remember us reducing this figure from a certain amount. It was from 100 that time. So we would like to know whether, anyway, the financial year has not yet ended. I think I'll ask this question around May when we are concluding this process. Let me leave this for May. Okay. Okay, yes, Jen?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I have an issue on recapitalization of Bank of Uganda. I would like to know from the PS how Ministry of Finance and Bank of Uganda works in coordination. You seem to be speaking different language. I was in the Budget Committee this morning, and the Deputy Governor clearly stated that they don't need a single coin for recapitalization, because in the last financial year, their accounts are not reading negative. They actually made profit. So what is this 100 billion that you're asking for? Who is originating this request? Is it Bank of Uganda? Is it Minister of Finance?
I can deal with that so that is I raised it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was in the same committee, and I think the minister and I decided to call the governor, Bank of Uganda. The history is that, as you know, the other financial year, in fact, this capitalization has been going on for the last 3 financial years. And usually, according to the governor, deputy governor this morning, he laid the response very clear that when the audit of the Bank of Uganda takes place and they see an impairment, that is, their liabilities far outweigh the assets or the incomes that they get in a particular financial year. That's when they ask the Ministry of Finance to request Parliament to meet the cost of that, that level of impairment by authorizing them to issue the instruments for them to capitalize themselves, so that the function of monetary policy is not compromised. So the audits of the previous years, where we have been asking for capitalization, revealed those levels of impairment. In fact, according to the Bank of Uganda, this morning, the impairment of last year of 400 and something billion, which you approved, really helped them a lot, to the extent that the operations for last financial year, after the audit, which results have come now, show that they made a modest profit of 48 billion. That's a statement he gave in the Budget Committee. I'm just repeating it here. In which case, therefore, for next financial year, there is no need for capitalization. What does it mean then? How did the money come in the budget in the first instance? It came in the budget in the first instance because this budget process is a continuous process. So, on the basis of the other previous audit, which had indicated Bank of Uganda was impaired by 400 and something billion, which Parliament authorized, the projection was that the same amount may be required next financial year. And that's the instance of how it entered into the BFP. Because that was reinforced by the fact that now that there is even COVID, the situation is going to be bad. So it was just a projection, which can now be removed from the provisions going forward, now that there is information that Bank of Uganda doesn't need it. So I wanted us to treat it as such. It's not that there was some ingenious financing. So Jennifer, in her conservative attitude, had put 100, just for the same purpose that I think they may be impaired, but to that extent. So I think as it is now, the matter is rested in both committees, that the other one was a projection on the basis of the previous actions, which have now been confirmed by Bank of Uganda is no longer necessary on account of the good performance of Bank of Uganda, but they are able to make a profit.
So you can now pay South Sudan and finish.
Chair, by the way, this has not been a resource which is available for the normal expenditures. It has been a resource available to Bank of Uganda by way of instruments that Bank of Uganda issues, capitalizes itself, and then manages a monetary policy. But last year, you know what Parliament did? They said, this is a resource, it's expenditure, but it was because of the law. The law prescribes that you must be transparent on both revenue and expenditures. So even if the instrument is not a resource or money which will be available for other votes, but Bank of Uganda only. Parliament in its own directive authorized some reallocation from it. And that created, of course, a further request for money to find money to finance that. So I think that rests that explanation.
Okay.
Can I go to the rest?
Yes, you can go to the
Chair, I wanted to ask whether there will be some questions regarding UDB.
Yes,
So that-
UDB,
so
she
that-
can be.
Or she can make
So
some.
UDB, I have an issue on financial performance for financial year 2019-2020. No, actually today, in terms of beneficiaries, including their categories by region, enterprises, fund, jobs, other things. So UDB, I know you will come back, but for the purposes of our report, we need this information, because we must report to the House about your performance. Yes, very contentious. From? Yes, we can, let's first deal with her presentation and vote 008, then we come to UDP.
Chair, I have issues to do with the presentation. Chair, I also happen to sit on the Committee of National Economy. And much as our major role is not to approve loans, but that has happened to be the practice. And I say among the challenges for financial year 2020-21 is non-performance of some loans, yet commitment fees are charged. This has always been our complaint. And the reason is this arises as a result of failure to secure rights of way. And in most cases, the failure to secure rights of way is as a result of Ministry of Finance failing to provide counterpart funding. I'll give an example of the palm oil project, where government has been borrowing for the last so many years in Buvuma, and they cannot kickstart the project because a lot of land remains unpaid for, and that is supposed to be from counterpart funding. So the complainant is Minister of Finance, and the same ministry is the one who is supposed to provide counterpart funding. And every time we approve a loan, Honorable Minister, you know it's one of the requirements now. You convince us that counterpart funding is available, which is not the case. How do we solve this? Then two, still among the challenges, the increasing cost of borrowing arising from a shift from concessional borrowing to market-based loans. And still as a member of the Committee on National Economy, how do we solve this? Can we reduce on our appetite as a country? Because even as we talk now, we have a number of loans before us, and we are unsure of how many are actually in the pipeline. So we have not seen any sign that there is a reduction in how much we borrow. And lastly, on the table, the budget proposal, I have an issue, Mr. Chairman, with the court awards. Of course, we must pay. These are government obligations. But as the Minister of Finance, and specifically Honorable Minister, this is now not a ministry, the technical officers, but Honorable Minister, also, who is also, of course, a member of Cabinet. Mr. Chairman, we continue to see court awards, and many of them are as a result of human rights abuses. An issue which can actually be prevented. So, what remedy or what punishments that the minister is planning to put in place for those entities which are actually making government to spend on some of these unnecessary court awards? Is there a remedy to see how we reduce that in the near future? Leave alone the areas, but the new charges that may come along. Thank you very much.
Yes, Honorable Saida.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. First of all, I would like to supplement on what Honorable Megade has said.
the Committee on National Economy set up guidelines for approving loans. And every time a loan is being processed, Ministry of Finance gives an irrevocable guarantee that they are going to provide the counterpart funding and fulfill all the conditions precedent to utilization of loans. But it's so worrying and disappointing to see that quite a number of loans which are costly to this country are not being utilized. We are losing in terms of interest, we are losing in terms of time value of money, and we are losing in terms of benefits to this country. When we look at the GDP, it seems we are growing very well, but this GDP is not being translated into people's pockets because these loans, which form the bulk of our GDP, are not being utilized. Can the Minister of Finance really do something? If these loans you realize that cannot be utilized, can we cancel them off our books? Because the interest is quite heavy. An additional loss which we are incurring by not utilizing those loans. I remember there was a loan for a power project, I think this was Katakwi Moroto, which was cancelled after 11 years of non-utilization.
And of paying interest.
And we are paying a commitment fee all that time. Can the Minister of Finance get a mechanism for early detection of those loans which will not be utilized and cancel them early enough so that we don't incur those multiple sources? And on the cost of borrowing, I know I'll be one of those to be blamed, but because I calculated the interest on the debt stock is about 4%. And this is certainly too high for a developing country, borrowing long-term loans. Can we defer some of these loans and wait? Because the worry with the concessional loans is that they'll take long to be processed. Can we plan forward and minimize on the non-concessional loans? Because I don't know whether at this rate we have not even surpassed the provision for borrowing on commercial terms. Because if it is 4% on average, it certainly looks like we have well surpassed the limits which are set for commercial borrowing. And Mr. Chairman, I'm happy that they have provided a hefty 225 billion for contingent funds. I hope this will help us to reduce on the frequent supplementaries. Because there is nothing so disappointing like capitalization of Bank of Uganda coming as a supplementary when it is something which has been foreseen. It's either the Bank of Uganda or the Minister of Finance which is not really budgeting well. Because if it is a foreseen expenditure, why don't you provide for it regularly rather than presenting it as a supplementary? Mr. Chairman, for now, those are my comments.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can we get quick responses because we have to manage time?
Chair, I want to respond to the issue of debt management, and then I'll ask
the issue of debt management and debt stock also.
Yes, and then I'll ask the PS also to comment, and Jennifer. Regarding counterpart funding, I want everybody to really appreciate that we are running a cash budget. And we have also made some good progress under the leadership of Honorable Saida Bumba's committee when actually they put it as a condition. For the last 3 years, we have actually now improved greatly. We no longer have a serious issue of counterpart funding because now before we come to Parliament or to Cabinet, we are sure that the money is there for counterpart funding. But there is the stock of projects that are not performing well, and the other factors that are contributing to this, which we would want actually to come to this committee when we have time and pass through them, and then we have a discussion. Because some of them are, for example, compensation and right of way, where you have the resources, you want to build the road, but people say we are not going to take the amount of money that we have used by the chief government Barua. We are going to court. The case in point is the Entebbe Expressway, where somebody stopped the project for almost 6 months. And when the project is stopped, the contractor claims some money. That's why we had suggested that we come to the House to make the amendment on the Land Use Act. And there was a strong view, especially from the central region and the northern region, that law will actually spoil our votes and we should abandon it. So we put it under abeyance. I hope that there is now a new appreciation of this and we can bring the law when Parliament.
But Chair, I think,
Yes, Honourable
Chair, you see, the Honourable Minister should not use a single case. And for the last, I've been in Parliament, this is my 10th year, and for the last 5 years, the Entebbe example has always been given by the Minister. He has failed to find another example. Of course, that will be the second. But we are talking about, all of us come from constituencies where government is actually failing to pay or to compensate people who have voluntarily accepted the amounts valued by the government valuer. And the issue is not that. It's not that people are actually refusing the amounts. People are actually yearning. They open the accounts, they are checking bank accounts every other day. And it's government, it's finance, which is not paying. So let's leave alone this Entebbe issue where there is a rock. That is a unique case, and we know about it. But in many other cases, issues, just resources are not available, but people are willing to take the monies.
Yeah, but Chair, so that was an issue 3 years ago, but the situation has improved, and in our paper of performance of loans, we will demonstrate that actually the Parliament contributed to this performance because they have put it as a condition of this. Then there is the issue of appetite for loans. I want to state here that we have taken a cautious path in managing of our debt because we agreed with other East African countries on a convergence of 50% as threshold of our debt, and as we speak, including the standard gauge railway, we are close to 44%. And when you compare with other countries, Kenya, Rwanda, DRC and others, they are way beyond the 50%. There has been this view which the Honorable Saida Bumba and the team have, but everybody now knows that really running a balanced budget and without borrowing is very, very difficult, even at a home level. To use the resources that you have to run your affairs is not easy. There's no country that is using its own resources alone because it cannot be sufficient. What we are interested in now is that when we borrow, this money must be invested in areas that spur economic development, that spur growth, so that we can be able to generate more money in taxes. That's why, Chairperson, you will see us now moving from the issue of infrastructure, now going to household incomes. And I agree that we must now look at those areas. That's going to be the target, as you know, His Excellency, the President has focused on this, on ways on how we can put coins in the empty pockets of the millions of Ugandans so that we spur economic growth. That's now the target. But there is an enormous appetite, Honorable Migade, for services. People want electricity, people want roads, and I don't think that we can cut down on this appetite as we speak. I think the best way is to make sure that we borrow and borrow for the right things that can grow the economy. And that's what is now going to be our target. Finally, on the debt, there was the issue of the cost of debt. As we speak, the composition of our debt portfolio is that 80% of our debt portfolio is on concessional loans. Then 15%, 15% is on commercial loans. And most of the commercial loans are actually loans that have an element of business which cannot attract funding from the traditional lenders like the Exim, the World Bank, like the ADB. For example, if you talk about electricity, if you talk about irrigation, these are some of the things that the traditional lenders who normally lend us on concessional loans are not very much interested in. But also there are projects that grow the economy that need resources and need resources now, not to wait for long. If you had processed a loan with World Bank, Honorable Saida Bumba was the Minister of Finance knows, you take a minimum of 3 years to process a loan. Then the disbursement takes another 5 years or 7. So if you have a vision, a national development plan for 5 years, and you have a project to implement in 5 years, actually you can't implement it because of the source of fund. That's why we normally run to the commercial loans, and we are very cautious about the cost. So we normally look on the mix, the concessional and commercial loans. So we have 85% concessional and 15% commercial loan. The only danger which we have, Honorable Chair, is the issue of domestic borrowing, because that's where there is a problem, because the interest rate is high.
Mr. Chairman, sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
On the commercial loans, which have got a business element, can we have these expedited? The implementation expedited?
Quick.
Because they have the business element and they're expensive, can we perform them in record time? Because if we did that, that would help us to really reduce on the impact of the high cost. But even those, if I can talk about the project for rural electrification, the one for the sub-county headquarters, it's a very expensive loan, but it's not moving. It's not moving, and yet we are incurring high costs. Can we have these expedited?
Chair, finally, I agree that there is need to move very swiftly, and I'm glad that the Executive Director of PPDA is here. One of the challenges that we are facing is the procurement processes. And also this is mixed with the freedom and the democracy we have brought about. You find you have a project like Karuma, take an example of Karuma, where we had the resources, but in the process of procuring a contractor, it took us 2.5 years. Somebody from Katakwi, from Agago, who knows nothing about electricity, petitions for a review in the middle of the of procurement, petitions for a review, and that one takes an important project. So I've been arguing, and I think we attempted, Chair, you recall, to amend the PPD Act. Well, the view to have the procurement process, well, the view to have radical changes, but we met resistance even from the lenders. We don't know for what reason. We met resistance from these technical people. So we the reformers, the political class, are trying our level best, but we are really against the mountain of these people when it comes to procurement. So we hope that we have, now that we have a new mandate, we have to work hard and resolve this issue of procurement, because it's one of the key impediments actually of project implementation. Review of procurement processes has been a big problem for all of us, as you know. I don't know whether the PS or Jennifer wants to add something.
I think I entirely agree with you on areas that you have covered. I don't think that we should be able to go back to them. They are sufficiently covered. The other projects which are delayed after valuation, this connection of electricity under UETCL from Luzira to Namave. The guys first of all acquired a swamp. I don't know who gave them that swamp. Then when the line was supposed to pass there, up to today, a lot of money has been blocked there and supposed to be a vacation route for power. But the people who are there have refused the valuation which was given to them. In fact, it was not supposed to be compensated in the first instance because it's in a public land, which is a swamp. So as to who gives the titles in a swamp, I do not know. So these are the kind of things that we incur in the project implementation. Let me go to the issues that the chair and honorable members raised, just in the interest of time. Petroleum fund operations, I think Jennifer, last week, I think the minister signed off on the audit report of the half year of the petroleum fund in line with the law. So petroleum fund is supposed to be audited twice a year, and the investment committee for the petroleum funds and all those funds has been put in place, is now operational. The guidelines, I think, have been developed by that committee, and soon I think all of them will be laid before Parliament.
Okay.
Why didn't we budget for, say, the appropriation, proposed appropriation out of the petroleum fund in the budget framework paper? At that time, we had only 60 billion in that account. That was before the capital gains came. Capital gains came later. So there is some additional money there of about 100 and something billion. So as we finalize the budget, detailed budget allocations to prepare for appropriation by Parliament, if the resources certainly are not enough, I think this is one of the sources that we may propose you to authorize appropriation out of that fund for expenditures in infrastructure, as mentioned by the law. So that should be coming to you as we finalize the budget, detailed budget estimates. Domestic resource mobilization strategy implementation. Yes, first of all,
I invite you to give highlights on the performance report.
Yes, I think Jennifer, a member of that. Yeah, so we shall definitely come after the audit has been done. We shall bring the audit report and then give a summary of that those audited accounts over the years of the petroleum fund, showing inflows since inception and outflows through parliamentary appropriation. And where those outflows went in terms of the budget allocations, usually it has to be on the infrastructure areas as specified in the law. The domestic resource mobilization
please take note.
strategy.
Come back over that.
Yes, this has been finalized, and I think we shared a whole document.
Yes.
But implementation of that DRM has started in the earnest. It started this financial year with respect to a number of areas which are dealing with the automation of systems to improve efficiency of revenue collection and assessment. What are these systems which are there already? There is what we call the electronic fiscal devices, or the e-receipt system, electronic receipting system. That's the one which is supposed to be installed in every till of the supermarkets, as well as all the outlets of retail and wholesale. That system is supposed to really give us the revenue assessment real time, without second guessing the incomes of those people at the end of the financial year, or how much tax is supposed to be collected from the items that have gone through that system, as and when you buy items. So that system was met with a stiff resistance from mainly supermarkets, which are all in your constituencies. They wrote a petition, about 100 of them. We went to court, and I'm happy, I think most of you must have seen, despite your busy schedule in the campaigns, that the court ruled in the favor of government that they didn't have a strong case to reject the e-receipt system. So the implementation of that is supposed to improve tremendously collection of revenue at the present rates. The revenue which is not collected now is supposed to improve tremendously. The other thing is the stamps which are they call them what?
Digital stamps.
Digital stamps, which are on this. We started with accessible commodities, mineral water, etc., etc. And honorable members may be pleased to know that the performance of that since the last financial year has equally been extremely encouraging. So that's still also part of the implementation of the DRM. The third area is the rental solutions, which have been put in place and the reports from URA, I think Commissioner General should come and be able to give you the performance of these tax heads over the period, and they're showing very good returns on that area. The fourth area is with respect to the issue of provision of standard tax exemptions in the law, so that you don't have to come and move up and down seeking exemptions here and there, industrial parks and etc. So that's now established in the law. There's clarity of the application of the tax exemptions, which are meant to improve the understanding, first of all, of the tax system, and also who benefits from these tax exemptions in order to grow the economy. And once the economy grows, then the benefits of the tax system and expansion of the tax base certainly takes place along those lines. So I must say that we have started in the earnest, and now in next financial year, I think the minister proposed rolling out the digital stamps to other commodities such as cement, etc. That rollout is meant to expand the scope of tax collection towards the collection, financing of expenditures, and of course minimizing the tendency to go ahead and borrow resources. So that's what I wanted to comment on the DRM. When are we starting implementation? And I think I must say we have started implementation at the earnest. Other reforms are in the area of administration, re-engineering the networking within URA itself, and then also improving the tax administration body with respect to resourcing it very well. And I think you have seen changes which took place in that area recently, and also eliminating all forms of tendencies towards corruption. The other area of course, the DRM, which I forgot, was the electronic tracking system with respect to imports of goods and services. That's also being implemented now, so that we can now track all cargo.
The cargo tracking system?
The cargo tracking system.
That one came well before the...
It came well before, but we're now linking that with the internal system of the tax declarations as they are being cleared by Customs Department. That linkage was not there. So that's a very important area. Domestic arrears, there is going to be a provision next financial year. I think it will come in the detailed budget proposals for allocations once we have finished the tax, raising taxes, proposing areas of additional revenue, etc. But I think the BFP, there is some indication of the arrears provision for next financial year. If not there, but I think it will be coming in the detailed budget estimates. There was a proposal either to maintain this year's level of 400 or move towards that, so that we really pay the suppliers of government to government the due amount of monies that government has consumed, so that their businesses don't go under. The debt issue and treasury bond, I think we have finished that one. Emioga, yes, I think the Microfinance Support Center people are here. They have a statement, a detailed statement of who benefited, how much has been dispersed so far, the clients by region who have got that, and also the response to have the Microfinance Support Center. I think they are here. There's acting CEO, yeah, Helen is there. She'll be able to give additional information. But I think from what I see, I think the disbursements were about 179. But the question that Honorable Saida Bumba asked, maybe she was not here, that needs to be answered is, the money is in the bank, people have been identified to benefit, but they can't access because they don't have, is it counterpart funding? The matching. There's something called matching. So I think you should be able to answer that, because not like, not...
No, the question they were asking, why should we pay money to get money? To access yoga funds. Yes. I don't know whether it was part of agreement in Parliament, but the question our people were asking. They are being asked to pay some money in their surplus in order to access yoga funds. Yet they expected the funds to be for free.
So in other words, Chair, we are asking whether it is true that Ministry of Finance ordered for counterpart funding for these groups, because when the proposal was made to Parliament, we were told this is seed money and there was nothing to do with counterpart funding or members have to raise a certain amount of money.
I think the acting person should be able to help me out and the minister on that issue. Maybe I pause here for now.
Where is the substantive one? Can you introduce yourself?
Okay, thank you so much.
Substantive, I think, had some...
Thank you so much, Chair. Thank you so much, Chair. I'm called Maska Petronila Helen. I'm the Acting Executive Director. So I'm here to give you a status on
There's a question on the substantive ED. Where is the substantive?
He's currently on leave, but he's supposed to be back to office. He's currently on leave officially.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So about the disbursement,
Chair,
why
her statements are not acting, really final.
Sorry?
I proceed?
The minister is saying your statements are final. And we'll take them as official statements.
Yes, please.
From MSC.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much, Chair. So the disbursements were
Did
done.
you come with a presentation of some sort?
Yeah, we have statistics. We have some statistics that we could share.
If we can have a few slides shared.
Okay. As I explained.
Yes.
Yeah, the disbursements were effected to the accounts of the SACCOs, but for a SACCO to operate normally, following the Cooperative Act, members are supposed to buy shares within that SACCO to qualify to become members, and then they are supposed to pay membership fee. So what the money that the Myogas were trying to pay, it is money that was enabling them become a SACCO, because that is as per the Act. For them to become members of a SACCO, they're supposed to pay, they're supposed to buy a share, at least a share.
How much?
And what was happening, a share was at 10,000 shillings, and membership annual subscription was 10,000, which is a total of 20 only.
So each member.
Who determines that?
For each member of the...
Yes.
To qualify to be a member of?
To qualify to become a member of a SACCO, you're supposed to pay a share.
Of how much?
And the share is determined by the annual general meeting.
And
But
I want to understand. You are a group of motorcycle riders.
Yes.
50 of you.
Yes.
You are an association.
Yeah.
So you mean there is a requirement that this association transforms into a SACCO?
Now, what is happening with the Myoga is that the associations are members to a SACCO. So in other words, a SACCO, the membership of the SACCO are the associations. So for an
Are
association,
these existing SACCOs or new SACCOs?
they are new SACCOs.
So every association must belong to a SACCO.
Yes.
And who forms this
turn
SACCO?
into a SACCO.
The SACCOs are formed by the Myoga associations. So for us to get a certificate of registration from the Ministry of Trade, with a certificate reading
Now,
the
at
name...
my constituency level, there is the chairman of a Myoga. That one does what? And is responsible for what in that setup?
Okay. When you form a SACCO, then you'll have the leadership, the executive, which will include the chairperson, the secretary, the treasurer, and the committee members. Normally, they are between 7 to 9 members. Yes, but those are committee members of the SACCO. Which SACCO, for it to get a certificate of registration and qualify to be called a SACCO, the members should have paid at least a share, minimum of 1 share, and annual subscription.
But Chair. Chair.
Can I have Stella? Stella has not said anything since morning.
Thank you, Chair.
Then I come to Migadi.
You can imagine, Chair, we are the ones who seemingly have to know how the Myogo operates. And we are all asking one person who also is not yet conversant
So she is.
with what is taking place.
She is conversant.
I'm saying this because what is on the ground is not what she's prescribing. What I'm imagining what I'm suggesting, I wonder whether there was training component in this Myoga project. If it is not there, we had better do it, because the people on the grassroots do not know exactly what to do. It is the question that we received, we incumbents, to explain how the Myoga operates. And for me, I told them I've not been in office, I don't know how it operates. So what we need to envisage is where you are operating on the ground, people do not know how the Myoga operates. You can start from there and we do the training intensively before you prescribe anything.
And
That is my observation.
In your file, I was expecting a write-up about how the Myoga operates, the processes you go through until when you get to the end point of getting money, all the possible requirements. And I don't see...
Chair, maybe we can request that we, as you, because you indicated that we are going to be coming.
Yes.
But we can answer specific issues and then we go deep in how they operate next time. But I think Honorable Saida Bumba asked a question which affected all of us.
Yes.
The money for Myoga came to the districts, but there was a roadblock for this money to move from the district to the
beneficiaries.
To the beneficiaries. What exactly happened?
Okay.
Yes. If you can answer that one,
yes.
The rest we shall need the
Then
full
we come
information.
back to
Okay. Thank you so much, Chair. The roadblock was brought about by the certificates. We were doing a number of things at the same time. The Myogas formed, the associations formed, and the associations registered at the district. After that level...
At the constituency, not district.
Okay, they get their certificates of registration from the district, because the constituencies end up at the district structure. So after that level, they form a circle. The certificate of registration comes from the Ministry of Trade. So we had operational side, we had an understanding with commercial banks to allow the Myogas to open up accounts in the commercial banks. We signed an MOU and they moved ahead to open up bank accounts. At the same time, they were filling the bylaws, which bylaws were supposed to be presented to the Ministry of Trade for them to get the certificates of registration. So the disbursements were done as the bylaws, the certificates were also on their way. So the ones that received the certificates first, they accessed the money. So as we talk today, a number of them have received certificates. So they were supposed to present a certificate to the bank and a bylaw endorsed by the registrar to access the money. And that is the only way the bank would identify the Myoga circle, yes, to access the finances from the accounts. But then in the meantime, the signatories to the accounts, whenever the money would clock the account, they would get messages on their phones that 30 million has been credited onto the account. And upon receiving certificates, they would present the certificates to be in position to withdraw the money. So that roadblock was that, but which has been sorted.
Okay.
But,
can you maybe inform the committee? You said you have some statistics. How many so far have received? How many per region or what? Do you have some statistics?
But before that, Chair, I wanted to get clarified on the membership fee of 10,000 plus the other 10,000.
That one she can make a write-up. Because there are many questions around that. And we deferred these questions until when we get information. We could not explain to the people what exactly is happening. And
But
that's
they
why
gave out guidelines, Chair.
Where are the guidelines?
They gave out guidelines when they were training the groups.
No, I want the committee to benefit from, because the committee members did not attend the training.
Okay.
She will come back with full information, which we can use to explain to our people down there. Yes, can we now have UDB?
No, she was reading the list.
The statistics. Quickly, briefly go through. You want to read all these constituencies?
Sorry.
No, you have availed this information. The clerk can make an announcement for us for each one of us to look at it.
Okay.
Okay, the next thing that was, it's UDB, again in support of the private sector.
Yes.
But also in response to the COVID stimulus package.
Yes.
We had to call them at short notice, but she can give a broader picture and then come back again with the details.
Thank you.
Please, is the microphone working?
You did ask about the impact of UDB interventions on the economy and regional distribution of UDB funding. Before I get here, let me just, before I speak to that, let me just briefly mention about how we get the numbers. So obviously, last year, UDB was substantially supported with a total of 480 billion shillings in terms of new capital, and we're supposed to deploy this funding in specific sectors to help address the issues around COVID. So what the bank did when we received this funding was that we really needed to do our best to deploy it as fast as we can. So we did a lot of things, including working around online application. Now everyone can apply for their loans to UDB and upload all the documentation online. For those that cannot address online, we entered a partnership with Post Bank, where now someone can drop the application to UDB funding in Post Bank. We have an arrangement around there across the country. So wherever someone is, you walk to a Post Bank branch, that arrangement is there. We have a partnership with Post Bank. We recruited a lot of staff, and of course delineated sector expertise in the bank. So if you come to the bank, there is just specific person looking after agriculture or agro or industry or manufacturing or whatever it is. And we are able to attract really good staff from the industry. And I'm mentioning this because I think there have also been issues around does UDB have the capacity, the competence to appraise projects. But we get the best staff in all the banks, Stanbic, ABSA, wherever. And I think that's because of our value proposition and also the value proposition for the employees. And to this effect, just to let you know the kind of profile of staff we have, our biggest competitors for staffing is actually the regional DFIs. So we lose a lot of staff to African Development Bank, to TDB, etc., because of the experience and the competencies they get working with UDB. So those are some of the things that we did. And of course, really, we did a call for applications, I think twice or three times in the dailies, and then we went in radios all over the country with specific information around what kind of funding is available, who can access it, for what's the application procedure, etc. So we just made sure that there was nationwide kind of appreciation of what is there and who can benefit it and for what at UDB. Honorable Chair, as a result, despite the difficult year where even business confidence really suffered because of COVID, we were able to register loan approvals of 443 billion just in 1 year. And a lot of this obviously was after opening up the economy and after we received the funding, which came on 1st August. So in a space of just about 4 months, we're able to do 443 billion in loan approvals. We did disbursements. Disbursements is when now you actually disburse the money to a beneficiary. We managed to do 242 billion, that's as of September. But January to date alone, we have done another 25 billion, and the month has not yet ended. But these are now loans that we approved last year that now we are beginning to disburse after they fulfill conditions precedent. And as well, some of them are phased disbursements. For example, if someone is doing a factory, you do not give all the funding at once, but you have to phase it because you have to be sure that what you give them, they're putting it to proper use. If someone is importing a machine, sometimes they have to order, they manufacture, they ship it, they install it, and yet before you install the machine, you have to do, the buildings where you're going to install. So those are the phasing kind of issues that impact, but the funding will have been committed. So as and when it's time to disburse, you disburse. Then we also have, to the tune of 443 billion, this is what we call a pipeline. Now this pipeline, someone has applied already. We have done a preliminary assessment against some keys, against some keys, against some keys, against some keys, against some keys,